All right, welcome to the Lightline podcast. My name is Ari.
Hello.
Hey. So, this is a podcast about mental health. Today, we're going to be about transitioning, how that has impacted your mental health. Feel free to ask me questions as well. I'm open.
Yep, never mind.
All right, cool. So, my first question is, how has transitioning impacted your, and I guess if you want to define like what transitioning is to you.
Yeah, like for transitioning, there's always like a bunch of like stages to it. Like first have to kind of do like the mental transition of like figuring yourself out and kind of making that first recognition of like you're not quite who society says you're supposed to be, and kind of figuring out that like you're more feminine, more masculine, and other people kind of expect you to. And then there's like the social transition of starting to present as your preferred gender, and like, potentially changing uh, your your fashion sense and the types of activities that you are partial to given day. And then there's the medical transition, which everybody kind of talks about. Um, any of those are a big part of like continuing mental health, having a good feel. Um, and for me, like I have never done a lot of social transitioning. Perfectly honest, it's like I don't know. I was never that big into like skirts and dresses, and so a lot of it was medical. And boy, the medical transition, for good or ill, it will always affect your mental health a lot
Yeah,
because you're going through puberty again. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Um,
always.
I transitioned socially before I transitioned medically. I've done both.
For like the medical transition, I was definitely way happier like day one of it. And like part of that is just like the oh my god, like progress is happening. Finally. Thank God.
Mm.
Um and like the first few times that you have your dose, like whatever whatever it is. Like I went with patches first.
Went with
Um
patches.
yeah. Um I went with patches first and mainly because I was like I don't necessarily want injections. I have to. And at the time, I was already on a slew of oral ingestion pills, and adding extra oral ingestion pills could mess with like stomach chemistry
Oh, jeez.
and potentially give like stomach aches and stuff like that. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, well, I'm gonna go with the patches. Patches are like the least likely to work well for a given person, but they did work pretty well for me. Um, up until a point, and just like I guess at a certain point in the transition, my body's like oils just started to change, and the patches just wouldn't stick anymore.
Oh, jeez.
It was weird. And then I had to go to injections, and then with the injections in particular, those are definitely the most like extreme and fast change. And boy, did I notice the changes like immediately. Um, it was at the point where uh, prior to transition, it had probably been like 6 or 7 years since the last time that I had cried. And then I went to crying multiple times daily.
Oh, jeez.
Uh, yeah. Like, one of the points was like, I was literally just like scrolling through Facebook, and I, when I was a kid, I had always kind of made fun of people for this, but I saw a picture of a puppy that was so cute that I started crying.
Oh, goodness.
And like I had like never previously like really equated like crying with like emotional relief in the same way, or like that crying would be a good thing.
Mm.
But I felt so much better every single day, and it felt great to just like anytime that I felt anything that felt like a lot, that I could just cry and I would be better in like 2 minutes. And the rest of my day was great. Like, um, and that helped me a lot. Um, just like feeling better because like I just feel the need to bottle up anything anymore.
Yeah.
And like it also really helped like with the transition because I ended up having a lot of sensory changes as well.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, it's fairly rare, but for me, I started seeing colors more vibrantly. I could hear better. I could smell and taste better. Um, I started having a lot of different sort of physical reactions to physical touch. Good reactions, thankfully, but like I had never had an experience where like somebody hugged me and I could feel like my body light up. And then I started feeling that, and it was just the greatest.
Nice.
And like, um, and I was definitely, wow, is this what happiness is? Because I don't think I've ever been happy before when I was transitioning.
Yeah,
Um,
so how long have you been on HRT?
uh, well, I was on it for about 2.5 to 3 years, somewhere in that range. But about a year or two ago, I ended up losing access to HRT because I had to swap onto Medicaid. And while Medicaid has uh, what is it, enterologists, I think, uh, hormone doctors, uh, there are very few of them, and trying to get it on their list is difficult.
Mm.
Um, Especially because like you have to be in continuing therapy, seeing psychiatrists and psychologists the whole time. Not necessarily in a gatekeeping way, but in a they need to all communicate with each other and make sure that like the hormones aren't way too much, way too little. Sort and I just wasn't able to get in with the with any of the doctors that are necessary, and so I had to stop HRT and I started detransitioning. And the detransition period is definitely the worst I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I can't
Because
imagine.
yeah, I mean like there's the emotional problems that kind of come with like going through puberty a third time, and then at the same time all of those sensory uh, additions started reverting as well. And part of the problem was like this was kind of still during like the height of COVID thing, and I stopped being able to taste food.
Oh, that
Um,
sucks.
I thought that I had COVID for a while. Um, and there's still a lot of problems of like I can remember seeing colors that I can't see anymore, and um, and like having physical sensations that just exist in my chemistry, and so it's kind of just like the worst thing that has ever happened. It's losing access to HRT.
That's something that I worry about myself. Just because I'm.
Yeah, yeah. It's not going to get too political, but it is a it's a concern for a lot of people right now. Current ongoing.
So, how have the people to your transition? All supportive, not supportive? How has that impacted your?
Um, the people who are around me um were very supportive of, but to some extent, it's because I had explicitly distanced myself from the
Okay.
before coming out. Like living with my parents, I definitely could not come out. There was no way that that was ever going to happen. My parents are very much of the opinion that like being gay should be
Oh,
type of people. Yeah. Um. Thankfully, like not everybody who in my family thinks that way. I have I have some support from family, though I still have to like stay away from them. Unfortunately, because most of my family lives in a very small section hometown surrounding here. So if I'm nearby those supportive family members, I'm also nearby the dangerous.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, but I have gone back to my hometown a couple of times, and Wisconsin is a very politeness oriented sort of, and so even though I was like facing my parents again after transitioning or after coming out, my parents were still not going to like throw it in my face, but there was always that like quiet little, well, are you sure that this is right for you, maybe?
Mm,
Sort of tone, because they didn't want to make a scene, but they wanted me to make the scene for them.
gotcha.
Um, but thankfully, I am in Colorado, and Colorado, one of the most queer friendly states. So, like, anybody who is in my life is supportive of it, or at the very least, they are confused but okay with it.
Confused, but okay with it.
Well, I mean, it's the he a little confused, but he got the spirit.
Yeah.
You know, they don't necessarily know the right words to say, but they're trying to be. They may say the wrong words sometimes, but there's no malice behind saying something wrong.
Mm,
Just a slip of the tongue, or they just think that that's the way that it's said, and they don't know the implications. Yeah, everybody currently in my life is supportive, because if they're unsupportive, not in my life.
yeah, that's probably a good boundary to have.
Yeah.
Yes, do you have any questions for me about positioning? I can't give medical advice. I can only speak on my personal experiences, but
Um, like I talked about like a lot of changes in my experience, and you're kind of coming at it from other angle, testosterone, where I was on estrogen. Like, what were some of the things that surprised you about like thought you were prepared for, and found out that you weren't quite ready when it hit you?
um, definitely the change in sex drive. That was
Fair.
the biggest thing for me. It leveled out over time, fortunately, but um, I did a fair amount of research, so there was nothing that I was shocked by. I didn't notice any change in my sensory perception. Um, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Like every nature, some are going to have like very explosive type changes. I experience have much more sort of standard experience.
Yeah, and I
Um,
started out slow. I started out of it just because it's
yeah,
kind of like testing the waters to make sure because I have mental issues, I'm figure my senses.
yeah. For me, I initially oh, Discord headache. We're back. Um, for me, when I first went on therapy, I ended up having to go to therapy initially before I could improve hormone. Problematic place that going through not make.
Yeah.
Um, I was initially on private health insurance, and their policy was that you have to go to their gender therapist. I was really happy that I had to go through first because the gender therapy I went to, it wasn't, oh, well, are you sure that you're actually transgender and not just some other, just wish that you were somebody else? The gender therapy was like, okay, well, here are some of the things that are probably going to happen to you on HRT. Like, are you okay with these potentially happening to you?
Hmm.
Like, certainly one of the more uncomfortable questions, like, well, are you okay with growing boobs?
Yeah.
And,
Like, yeah, that's kind of the point.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, certainly some people are kind of like, well, I would rather like continue to be flat chested. Like, want like I don't want bazongas.
Bazonga.
Yeah. Um, and like certainly some people think far enough ahead of, well, I don't necessarily want to grow breasts. Like it could potentially cause back issues or stuff like that. And like that is something that's like good to keep in. Um, and the other part of like the whole process was like well, HRT is going rough. Like, no matter how much you want it, it's going to throw your emotions into turmoil, as we've done. And, like, if what you're really after is social transitioning, want people to accept you as your gender, don't necessarily have to go through HRT. And it was a lot of like, what level of transition?
Mm.
And like, I feel like the 3 months were really spent. And like, as part of that, there was also each time that I went in, I had blood drawn. We're testing hormone levels, see what was average, so that if I did want to go through HRT, they would have a baseline on like what levels would be best for me.
Okay.
So like, none of it really felt like wasted time, and good for me by the end, because I felt like I knew what I wanted out of HRT, gender therapist knew what I wanted out of HRT, and my insurance knew what I wanted out of HRT. And so everything kind of went smooth that way.
Yeah, I don't think that therapy was really a requirement for me to start HRT. I did go to therapy. I've been in therapy, but it wasn't something that was specifically listed as have to do this in order that you're. I think I just did like silent.
Yeah, that's fairly common nowadays. Certainly benefits both. Some people such a hormone possible. They need a little bit more time. What exactly is going
Yeah. So did those? Did you get worse like swings with it?
Yeah, I would say that like definitely a part of it for me. It wasn't like a lot of people that think like mood swings, they specifically like getting angry out of nowhere.
Mm.
Angry wasn't really a thing that I was feeling out of nowhere, but there were definitely some times where I would just be like sitting there. I would just be like, man, I feel really sad right now.
Oh,
And like somebody next to me like, why are you sad? Be like, I don't know. I just feel
mm.
sad.
That kind of level out over time.
Yeah, it definitely did level out over time. That period that I talked about earlier, where like I'm crying every single day, that
Mm.
lasted for about 6 months,
Jeez.
and then yeah, to some extent, it lasted 6 months because I wasn't in a rush to end that. Like I said, like there was because I had been very used to like bottling up emotion time. That's very much like the expectation of men, kind of let go. That probably contributed to a lot of them as well. Like whatever I'm feeling, I'm just gonna let it happen.
Yeah, that's probably good.
So like for anyone who is considering going uh, with feminizing HRT, estrogen, like one of the things that I ran into was you essentially start a menstrual cycle and you start having periods. It may or may not include bleeding, uh, but the emotions will slam you down to the ground a lot of the time, and like stomach aches that come with it. It's not quite as bad, at least for for cisgendered women when they have their periods, but when you're not prepared for it, it it can knock you off your feet.
Yeah, I think that's something that really surprises people.
Yeah, for sure. Like, despite the 3 months of therapy, that was something that never came up either.
Did they just
Of
not
like,
know?
yeah, because they didn't know that it was a possibility. Thankfully, I mentioned it to the gender therapist, and she was like, "Oh, I that wasn't in like my seminars or my lesson. I'm gonna have to write that down." I said, "Yeah, because the problem is that like um while like transgender women don't, at least not normally, they don't have a uterus, the period will affect like all soft tissues, and like most cisgendered women won't end up noticing that it will affect their intestine as well, because it's kind of hard to determine the difference between bleeding out of one hole versus the other. Uh, but for transgender women, they can have the problem of rectal bleeding,
Oh, damn.
and that is normally a case of like you need to go to the hospital immediately.
Yeah.
But for my case, I I found out that like yeah, that's just a period. I was like,
Oh.
oh no, because I had ruined my only pair of feminine underwear.
Oh no.
And after that, I just went, you know what? I'm just gonna go with red for everything.
Yeah, so I have PMDD. That's basically where you get like, swings to the extremes. And since testosterone stopped my periods, I've actually experienced a great lessening of the PMDD symptoms. Like I don't suffer from it anymore because I don't periods.
That must be a great relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was probably like 9 years old when I like realized that like periods are not something to be made fun of. Like,
Yeah, they are no joke.
yeah, like I mean, when I was 9 and I was like, "What, bleed? Haha, that must be so weird to just like bleed once a month."
It is
And like,
weird.
yeah, and then I like as I learned more about like what really happens with a period, I was like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
oh that is awful." And having experienced them, I can tell you they're
It is
awful.
awful.
uh, like thankfully for me, like they were not awful enough to negate all of the good things that were happening with it. Like
Yeah.
for my particular, I will take periods with all of the other parts of HRT any day. Like
Yeah.
it's worth it.
I can respect.
Yeah. Right.
No, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. I was gonna ask you, since we mentioned earlier at this of like supportive things like that. how has your support been since you started transitioning?
Um, Overall, I have good support work now. I've kind of done what you distanced myself from so supportive. Um, my family struggled at first. They've come a long way and out of support. Yeah, but like overall, I have very well. Yeah,
I don't know how much of our friendliness shall they know here to Colorado. Your support network is not great, so it's really good to hear that.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Do you have any other questions for me? No, that's okay.
none that's specific. So that could just be the stage fright freezing my brain.
Yeah, that's all good. You you ready to wrap things up?
Yeah, yeah, I think.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Back anytime.
All right. That's good.